Shalom. Welcome to our daily class from Rebbe Nachman and Patreon. We're holding in a new Torah today in the holy book of our great tzaddik Rebbe Nachman, who is considered one of the greatest of the Kabbalist and the Hasidic Rebbes, not only because of what he did in his lifetime, but because of the extended influence that he has had over Am Yisrael over the last 210 years or so that he's left us. So, you can measure greatness in a lot of different ways in a rabbi or in a wise man or in a sage or however you want to call him. And one of the ways, of course, is the influence over time. And some people have a great influence over their generation, and then after they're gone, the influence diminishes. But Rabbi Nachman, his influence has gotten greater and greater and greater, which is an interesting thing to talk about. We're here to talk today about the inclusive soul of Moses. In the beginning of the Torah, it says, Ita b'Zohar Bereshit. In the beginning of the Zohar, Parshat Bereshit, and all remember the beginning of Zohar is the beginning of creation. So the Zohar is going to be dealing with teachings of the beginning of creation. Maseh Bereshit, it's called. The workings of creation. And it's going to give us a very cut down piece of information that is expected to be accepted at a very broad level. Listen to what he says. Bereshit, it says, Talat nafkin mehad. 3 come out of 1. What does that mean? 3 apples come out of the tree, 1 tree. 3 branches come out of 1 trunk of a tree. 3 people come out of 1 mother. Had b'talat kaima. And then it goes on to tell us that 1 in the 3 establishes all of them. The had al kain train. And 1 is standing between 2 of them. And if you think about the vowel, the segul, 3 dots, there's a segul that's a vowel, and then there's a reverse segul that is one of the cantillations, the ta'amim. Segulta, it's called. But again, what are we talking about here? It's just giving us dots and points. Train yankim lechad, and then another 2 are nursing from 1. Nursing yankin means receiving life force. What are we talking about there? V'chad yanik lekama sitrin, and 1 gives over life force to many, many sides. See, so when you take a piece of Zohar, you have to see it through many windows, many descriptions and applications of the teaching. So Rabbi Nachman is going to take us to one place with it, but other rabbis will take it elsewhere, and all of them are true. Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chaim. Because when you break a teaching down to such a basic level, it's like mathematics. It applies in all situations. It's an abstract science, but it's actually very, very applicable to all different realms. Okay. Hayinu, he begins, Kiber va'anan uman, that the well of Miriam, the cloud of glory, and the man, the bread of heaven, kulam chazru b'schut Moshe. Moshe brought all of them back after Miriam passed away. The well left. Moshe brought it back. After Aaron, his brother, passed away, like in last week's Parsha, then the clouds left them, and they're going to get sunburnt really fast out there in the desert. Moshe brought it back. So now you see, wait a minute, 3 in 1. 1 came out of 3. That was the first statement. 1 was the source of 3. 1 person, 3 miracles. Keep that in mind. Because Moshe brought all the 3 miracles back. Como shamru, our sages said in Masechet Ta'anit, V'achachir shalosha haroi b'yerach echad. Now it's a statement of the Talmud, but the rabbis are bringing a statement of God, that I will make in 1 month, I will take away 3. In 1 month, 3 will die. And rhetorically, we ask the question, wait a minute, did Aaron and Miriam and Moshe all die physically in the same month? We know that they didn't. according to the simple understanding of the 5 books, Moses died in Adar, and Aaron died in the summertime, summer and winter, not the same time, right? Tirtzu. So the Tirtzu gives us ki behistalkutam shel Aaron uMiriam nistalku ananu ber, that when Aaron and Miriam died, so too the cloud and the well left Am Yisrael, these 2 big miracles. But they came back in Moshe's honor. And when Moses passed away in the month of Adar, Pisces, if you're interested, then when Moses died, all 3 miracles left. That's not too happy, right? These are big miracles. Water to drink, bread to eat, and a cloud, which sounds to me like the basic things that a person needs to exist: food, drink, and shelter. Now, a cloud is an interesting type of shelter, you have to admit. And as if to say that, as if all 3 died in 1 month. And this is 3 came out of 1. 3 miracles: the bear, the man, the Anan, all 3 came out of Moses. Hayinu ber manunan, hayinu bishvil had, bishvil Moshe. And Moshe is teaching us the power of Moses, who was the Moshiach of his generation. Moshe aya nishmato kalul mishlosha avot. And Moses' soul was an inclusion of all 3 patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. His soul was not just any old soul. His soul was an inclusion of the 3 greatest souls who ever lived. So how great was Moses if he included all 3? And he had the power to bring down these 3 influences of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. What are the 3 influences that we say that these forefathers had in the spiritual realm that became physical, obviously? Ber Mayim Chaim. Well, a well of living water, Ze Bechinat Avraham. That's the idea of Avraham. Meme Aches, the waters of kindness. That was what Avraham was known for, kindness. Avraham Itchil Lachfor Berot, and it says the Chumash that Avraham began to dig wells. Vanan, and now so we see Avraham is connected to water. Chesed is connected to water. It's such a primitive, necessary item in this world to have water. Va'anan ze bechinat Yitzhak, and the cloud is the idea of Yitzhak, this cloud of glory. That, if you live in the desert or near a desert, you know how valuable a cloud can be. Bechinat hoshech anan varafel, darkness, a cloud, and I guess mist. Arafel would be, you could define that as mist. Arafel is like heavy mist. And this is an idea from the verse Techena Einav Miraod. It says about Yitzhak Avinu that his eyes were weakened, darkened from seeing. He was on the way to blindness. I don't know how blind he was when this pasuk came, but it's in connection to, of course, giving the blessing to Esav and to Jacob. Uman ze bechinat Yaakov. And the idea of the man, the bread of the angels, that little wafery, thin item that came down every morning in the desert for 40 years. Uman ze bechinat Yaakov. It's the idea of Jacob. Why? L'ra'ot beYaakov amo, to shepherd Jacob, his people. So what is the shepherd's number one responsibility? To take the sheep to the food, to take the sheep to the grazing areas. And so the shepherd, that's always the idea, but of course we relate to the shepherd more spiritually as to take us, the shepherd takes us to the Torah, to the interpretations that inspire us, the ideas that take us out of the mundane existence that we are in. So the shepherd is the idea of Jacob, and that was included also. So Moses had all these 3 things in him: the water of chesed, the bread of the shepherd, the food, the nourishment, and the cloud of protection of Isaac, of Yitzhak. Moshe haya kolul me'avot, and Moshe included all three of these, and he was the Moshiach. So what we're getting at here is that you see that this idea of Moshe Rabbeinu was the idea of the tzaddik who includes all the other tzaddikim. See, because we get used to this idea that there's righteous people. That's already hard enough in this world that we live in. But then there's even someone who's so righteous, he's like includes all the other righteous people. Because you see the way that souls connect, they're all part of a system, an internet, an integrated system of soul. And it's like a pyramid, and there's a top point to the pyramid. That's where the tzaddik of the generation arrives. He's like the faucet that brings down the spiritual power to the rest of the generation. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu included all these three. But remember, being included it means that he has the power to bring down those items into the world, and that's what he did. Was even when his brother and his sister passed away, he was still able to bring those miracles into existence. Now, you might ask, well, how did he do that? Well, he did it because of his close connection to God, obviously. Now, you could ask, well, was it God doing it or Moses doing it? People ask that question all the time. Well, who's actually doing the miracle, the man or the God behind the man? And we have to say that Moshe, we talk about Moses as Ish Elokim, it says in Tehillim 90. The man of God means that he was half God, half man. And that might disturb people, but the rabbis said it. So we're not disturbed by the idea that God can invest a human being, and he could still be a human being, but he's invested with divine light. So why is that a contradiction? It's not, when we understand that we are made from a sparks of God. And if somebody's spark gets so big, it's like a bonfire, then he becomes much holier. And then he has this spiritual power to bring down what God wants to happen. Because God, he didn't bring down the water and the well, the water and the man and the cloud for just Moses. He brought it down for everybody. But he wants it to happen through the righteous. Because he's showing us how important righteousness is. Because that's how you build merit for the people. So if you want to be a leader, don't think about how to lead. Think about how to be attached to God. Because God will do the rest. Okay, but let's drop that for now. So Moses was included all these souls. And he had the power to bring down these powers of man, of water, and the bread of angels, and the cloud of glory. Be'er Mayim Chaim. Now he's going to bring verses to support this statement that Moses had this power. And so he tells us how that works. Uman Zebechinat Yaakov. We learned that. V'shem Moshe ala be'er. Moses. We see one place that Moses sat on the well, right when he went to Yitro in Midian after he fled from Egypt. So the idea of Moses sitting on the well is not just, the Torah doesn't give us little details in the story just because they happened. They give us details in the story because they represent something spiritual to us, that Moses was attached to this idea of the well, the idea of the waters of life. And it's written there about him, and then it's written, and Moses came into the cloud when he spoke with God. And it's also written about him, and then it said to Moses, what's this bread? So there we have it, the man, the bear, and the cloud. These three angels. So the Chumash is telling us, alluding to these powers. But Rebbe Nachman comes along and tells us, makes the connection for us, that it's not just the powers that are being talked about in the verse, it's actually the reality of those miracles that he brought in. And this is all about Moses himself, because in his merit they ate the man. So it's interesting. God does the miracle in the merit of the tzaddik, but he's not doing it for the tzaddik, he's doing it for the people. So which is it? You see how it works? There's a reflexive quality here. There's a symbiotic relationship going on. God does the miracle for the people in the merit of the righteous. So if the people don't have the merit, They really need a tzaddik to bring the merit to them so that they can have food, shelter, and clothing and the basics that they need. On the other hand, God's not going to do it just for the righteous if there's no point, which is to save the people and guide the people and guard them. Okay, I wish the politicians would just, learn this a little more inside. Hu takakayal Moshe batzmo. Okay, v'latid, in the future, now the Rebbe is going to step outside the box a little bit. B'shat atechiyah, well, really outside the box, to all the way to the time when the revival of the dead occurs. Yakum Moshe kalu mishlosha avot kamakodem. That Moses will get up from the dead, including Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, how does that look? What does that mean? They're not going to be separate? No. Rather, it's an aspect of ma shahayahu shiyeh, that the first letters of that verse, ma shahayahu yeh, is the letters Moshe, Mem Shin Hey. And that's going to tell us that the map of the present Geula, the present redemption that we're in, and we're waiting for its completion and complete fruition, is really a paradigm of the original redemption. And Rebbe Nachman went even further to tell us that the final redemption is going to mirror the redemption of Purim in a way that it's not going to mirror the redemption of Egypt. Because remember the difference. In the redemption in Egypt, it was the Jewish people came out of a nation and went to find their own land. In Purim, it wasn't so much about coming out of the land of Persia and the land of Xerxes, but it was rather the idea of the Jewish people being redeemed from within the foreign nation to be able to be Jews wherever they are. Which reminds me of a statement of a friend of mine that, well, we understand that we can stay in America and the redemption will happen with us here. Which is an interesting thought if you're, an American Jew that doesn't want to come to Israel. I can hear that. But with what's happening in America, I don't know if I would want to be there. Now, people say, well, Avraham, it's not any better in Israel. You have terrorists here. You have crazy people everywhere with guns, So it's an argument that's really not really something we want to go to very often. But the point really for us here is to understand this soul of Moses, this soul that's all-inclusive. Because the Moshiach is the one who connects to everybody else. And how do you become such a person? Well, you let go of your own agenda and be there for others. It's simple, right? And you don't have to be the Moshiach of the whole world. You could be the Moshiach of your family. You could be the Moshiach of your business, of the people that come to your synagogue. You could be the helper wherever you go. But the main idea is to make room for the other person. And this is what the Lubavitch Rebbe did for millions of people through his leaders, his teachers, that learned from him and went out into the world and established all these thousands of Chabad houses. Now, some people love Chabad and some people don't really like Chabad. They have their problem with it. But you have to look at the facts that they did more for Judaism in the modern era than anybody else because they brought Judaism to the people on a global scale. And that is an epic messianic movement. Now, where it goes and how it ends, we don't know. But that's okay, because we can live in the middle of not knowing. And this is one of the highlights of wisdom, is to be able to not know. Teach your tongue to say, I do not know. It says in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers teaches us, don't teach yourself to say, I do not know, because you know why it tells us that? Because our nature is to think we know things when we don't know them. And I can just say, I don't know. I'm free to not know. And when I'm free to not know, I can make an empty space in my brain to receive it. And then we can connect to this greater idea of being part of the mass, of the collective, of the of the nation. And being there for whoever God chooses you to be there for. So we're here for this Torah. We're here to share with each other these great ideas of Rabbi Nachman. And we're going to continue this Torah tomorrow. It is Wednesday. So God bless you all. Wednesday is the day of the creation of the sun and the moon. So it's also the idea of the creation of the vehicles of time. the tools that we use to measure human time. And pretty soon we're going to do a class on, well, how do we compare God's time to man's time? It's an interesting subject we'll come to, God willing, here on Patreon. God bless you all.